Well, at a time when China has invested heavily in HDFC Bank, a move some say takes advantage of the pandemic situation, something which China itself has recovered from, the government has instituted new restrictions in its foreign direct investment norms. The new norms are meant to prevent Chinese takeovers. They have been decided upon at a cabinet meeting. The curbs are meant to restrict Chinese investment. Are they in all areas or not? Perhaps in some. Why? To prevent opportunistic takeovers during the pandemic is what the government says. Why? Also because there's been a Chinese investment in HDFC. The timing was a bit curious. The government by no means wants to restrict trade with China, not at all, but things will move with certain curbs. So the government has brought in these curbs, and any entity from a country sharing land borders needs government approval is what they've said. Now, in another small sign of moves towards the eventual opening up of the economy after the lockdown ends, hopefully, Air India has announced that it's opening up bookings. Bookings for select domestic flights are opening up from the 4th of May, and bookings for international travel are opening up from the 1st of June. So two major developments today, new FDI rules and the government announcements on partially reopening the economy in select areas. Joining us, Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, President of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Also joined by Dr. Naushad Forbes, co-chairperson of Forbes Marshall and the former president of CII. Dr. Reddy, let me come to you first. What is the government particularly worried about when it comes to FDI and China? The timing of today's announcement, the new rules, what message does it send?
So clearly, I think the government is looking at a comprehensive way to protect industry, and this is one among many steps. Liquidity was the first one, which we've seen RBI gave significant announcements. And there was a sense of worry or fear whether this would be a time for opportunistic takeovers by international companies. So I think this is one step towards that. And please note that they don't say there cannot be investment from the neighbors. It's just that you need to seek government permission. So I think it can be used appropriately to protect and also can be used to give a sense of comfort to Indian industry.
Okay. Dr. Forbes, the 20th is a date which a lot of us are looking at very, very closely. Small steps towards reopening the economy. Are you encouraged by what has been announced by the government today?
Yes, very much. I think if you look at the lockdown unwinding that's starting on the 20th, it's very welcome. Manufacturing is largely being permitted to start. There's been further clarification that logistics can move around the country very effectively and smoothly. I think both these steps are extremely welcome. What I think is missing so far is an economic package for the weaker sections of society and an economic package for enterprises. This is really long awaited, and the longer we wait, the worse things get, the worse the employment situation in the country gets, and the longer and more problematic a complete and quick recovery of the economy will be. So that to me is the big missing piece. And
okay.
I do not understand why it's still missing and why we have heard nothing. We're just told that there's a package in the works.
Right.
But why is it taking so long? Why haven't we seen it yet?
Dr. Reddy, what would you like to see in this package? I think everybody's expecting it. It has to be a massive project for the government, a package. But perhaps several lakh crores. Is that reasonable to expect? Because a lot of people would say, how many sectors of the economy can the government actually fund to fix the economy, as it were, coming out of this recession?
So Vishnu, first I want to say that I think these are unprecedented times, and we cannot take some of the old, we don't have a playbook for this environment. We have to create something new. And it's very clear what we've seen other countries across the globe doing, whether you look at what IMF has recommended for India or World Bank. So FICCI clearly had given a recommendation which spoke about, number one, taking care of the most vulnerable. So whether it was the farmers using the JAM Trinity to put that money into people's hands, that was the first significant step. The other one, which I think is very, very crucial for the country's just overall economic health, is to immediately protect the MSMEs. And even when you open up on the 20th, MSMEs have clearly expressed that they don't know whether they have money to buy raw materials to restart their organizations. And this affects over 100 million people at the very minimum, and it's so important to focus on MSME. The next thing that we looked at was really to find ways to look at the sectors which are most affected, and that's actually quite a few, whether it's aviation or hospitality. We went on to say that another important aspect was to really protect business continuity across the board. And towards that, not only did we speak about the back ending of interest and principal, but I think a very important one is that it's estimated there's almost 2.5 lakh crores pending in dues from the government.
Okay.
So if the government would just mobilize the money which is owed to various states and corporations,
right,
that would bring liquidity back in the system.
Okay.
I have only two other aspects of important recommendation which are part of FICCI's comprehensive plan. I'll finish in a minute. And the next one was to definitely look at the health sector, which has borne the brunt of a lot of this entire situation. And finally, to keep money for large-scale projects to get India ready for the future, whether it's the future of manufacturing or participating in the disruption of the global supply chain. So we gave a comprehensive multi-sectorial approach, which is about 9 to 10 lakh crores.
All right, 9 to 10 lakh crores, perhaps what we need. One last question, Dr. Forbes, to you. The RBI governor has said that whatever steps, and his exact words were, whatever it takes to support the economy going forward and going beyond what the RBI has already announced, will be announced in the future. So in terms of what the RBI can do, what are your expectations there?
So actually, I think the RBI is doing exactly what we would expect of it. It's doing all those things that will push liquidity into the economy. I think the gap is in what the government needs to do. At the end of the day, the RBI is trying to do things that will encourage banks to lend. But why are banks not lending? Why are banks keeping their money with the RBI? It's because of risk aversion. The only way they'll move away is if there is a government guarantee for their lending. And that's why the recommendation that we've made in CII to the government is to actually provide a package for industry where all enterprises get 3 months' salaries at interest rates of 4 to 5%. And that's a rate of interest which is not subsidized. It's a rate of interest which should be guaranteed by the government, administered through the RBI, but guaranteed by the government.
Right.
The hit, if there's any hit, will be in subsequent years. It will not impact the fiscal deficit this year.
Right.
It's actually a very workable scheme. It will keep people employed by the million. And if we keep people employed by the million in all enterprises, large, small, MSMEs, as Sangeeta mentioned, but even small shops, even large construction projects, even hospitals, it will keep people employed. If we keep people employed, we will have a much more rapid economy, a rapid recovery in the economy than we will otherwise have. Otherwise, we're letting things slow down and decline, and then actually getting back is going to be very problematic.
It is indeed. Well, I'd like to thank both of you very much for joining us, sharing those views on the next steps. I think we can look forward to the 20th, but I think we really need to look forward to what lies beyond that. We have had enough of this pandemic. Thank you both very much for joining us.